There was a time when people didn't get dressed just to go somewhere. Getting dressed was part of the event. A trip to the grocery store, a flight across the country, dinner downtown, even an ordinary Sunday afternoon. Men straightened their ties. Women adjusted their gloves. Shoes were polished. Hair was done. Not because anyone told them to, because somehow, people believed everyday life deserved effort. Then little by little, that ritual disappeared. To understand why Americans dressed the way they did, you have to understand what getting dressed meant in that era. It wasn't about fashion. It wasn't about status. It wasn't even really about other people, though other people certainly noticed. It was about something quieter and more personal than any of that. It was about the relationship between a person and their day. In the 1950s, getting ready in the morning was not something you rushed through. It was a sequence, a ritual with its own internal logic and its own specific order. The alarm went off at 6. The coffee percolated on the stove. The shirt came out of the closet, already pressed from the night before. The tie was selected with consideration. The shoes, polished last Sunday, waited on their rack. For women, the sequence was equally deliberate. The hair, set in rollers the night before, was brushed out into its prescribed shape. The foundation, the rouge, the lipstick, red, almost always red, were applied in front of a vanity mirror with the focused attention of someone preparing for something that mattered. And here is what made this era genuinely different from our own. Everything mattered. Not just the formal occasions. Not just the weddings and the funerals and the office Christmas parties. The ordinary Tuesday mattered. The hardware store run mattered. The bus ride to work mattered. The little league game your son was playing in on a Saturday afternoon, that mattered too. Americans of the post-war era had developed what you might call a philosophy of presentation. A deeply held, rarely articulated belief that how you appeared to the world was a form of communication. That your clothes spoke before you opened your mouth. That a pressed shirt and a polished shoe said something specific and important about who you were and what you thought of the people around you. This philosophy didn't come from nowhere. It was built by a generation that had survived genuine deprivation and genuine danger. Men who had worn army uniforms for years came home and discovered that civilian clothes, their own clothes chosen by themselves, were a luxury they had almost forgotten. Women who had spent wartime in factory coveralls and head wraps came back to dresses and felt the specific pleasure of choosing to be feminine again. The post-war act of getting dressed was not just personal grooming. It was a quiet declaration. We made it. The world is worth showing up for. And here is the proof. Let's talk about the places Americans dressed for. Because the list is extraordinary by modern standards. They dressed for the airport. In the late 1950s, flying was still considered a remarkable event. A miracle of technology that put a human being in the sky at 30,000 feet and delivered them to another city in hours. You dressed for that. You dressed because the occasion demanded it and because the other passengers deserved your best and because you were, in some essential way, a guest in the sky. They dressed for the ballpark. Old footage of 1950s baseball games shows something modern fans would find almost incomprehensible. Men in the bleachers in sport coats and ties, women in fitted dresses and hats, watching a weekday afternoon game at Ebbets Field or Comiskey Park or Fenway. It was not a formal occasion. It was a baseball game. They dressed anyway. They dressed for the doctor's office, for the bank, for the post office, for parent-teacher conferences, for Sunday drives that went nowhere in particular. They dressed for television. When the cameras of the Ed Sullivan Show or Your Show of Shows captured the studio audience in 1955, every man and woman in that audience was dressed as though they had somewhere important to be afterward. Because in their minds they did. They were out in the world. And being out in the world required your full effort. Before we proceed, what's the most dressed-up occasion you remember from your childhood? Tell us in the comments. These stories belong to all of us. The grocery store deserves its own moment here, because nothing captures the philosophy more completely than the image of a 1950s woman doing her weekly shopping. She is in a fitted day dress, cotton floral, belt at the waist, skirt to the knee, white gloves, low heels clicking on the linoleum, a structured handbag in the crook of her arm, hair set, lips red, shopping for a Tuesday dinner like she stepped off the pages of a magazine. Not because the A&P demanded it, not because anyone was watching, because she had decided, somewhere deep in her understanding of how life should be lived, that even the A&P deserved her best. That idea, the idea that ordinary places and ordinary moments were worth the effort of beauty, is the entire lost art this video is about. And it wasn't just women. The men were equally committed. The factory worker who spent his week in work clothes wore his best suit to church on Sunday with the seriousness of someone fulfilling an obligation. The salesman who traveled by train from city to city wore his hat and his overcoat and his leather shoes because the train and its other passengers were part of public life and public life had a dress code. Even the men who hated ties, and there were many, wore them. Because the social contract of that era was clear and widely understood. You dressed for where you were going. You dressed for the people you would encounter. You dressed because civilization, such as it was a shared project that required your daily participation. At its peak in the late 1950s, the American getting ready ritual had evolved into something genuinely beautiful. The men had their side of it. The barber was visited every 2 weeks without fail. A proper haircut from a proper barber who knew your name and your preference and applied Brill cream or Vitalis with the practiced ease of a craftsman. The shoe shine kit sat permanently beneath the hallway hat rack. The suit was rotated carefully, charcoal on Monday, navy on Wednesday, brown tweed on Friday, because 3 suits worn properly lasted longer than 10 suits worn carelessly. The women had theirs. The weekly beauty parlor appointment, a ritual so sacred it appeared on the family calendar alongside church and school events. The careful organization of the dress wardrobe by occasion. House dress for mornings, day dress for errands, suit for church or business, cocktail dress for evenings. The accessories organized in their proper places, gloves in the top drawer, handbags on the shelf, hats in their boxes stacked in the closet. And the children dressed too. This is perhaps the detail that modern Americans find most startling. Children in the 1950s were dressed by their parents with the same care and intention as the adults. Little girls in party dresses and white anklets and patent leather shoes for birthday parties. Little boys in miniature suits and bow ties for church. School clothes that were not play clothes. A distinction observed so carefully that children changed out of their school outfits the moment they came home before going outside. The standard was transmitted from generation to generation not through lectures but through daily practice. Children learned what getting dressed meant by watching parents who took it seriously every single morning of their lives. And the culture around getting dressed supported the ritual completely. The haberdashery on Main Street where the owner knew every regular customer's collar size. The shoe repair shop that kept your leather shoes alive for years past when cheaper shoes would have been discarded. The dry cleaner who pressed your suit with the care of someone who understood that this suit had to last. The seamstress who took in a waist or let out a hem so that a good dress could be worn for another season. An entire ecosystem of craft and service existed to support the American ritual of getting dressed properly. Most of that ecosystem is gone now. The unraveling didn't happen all at once. That's the thing about the end of a ritual. It rarely announces itself. It started with the counterculture of the mid-1960s, which made a deliberate and politically charged statement by dressing down. Jeans weren't just comfortable. They were a rejection. Long hair wasn't just a style. It was a refusal. The young generation that took off its tie in 1967 was saying something specific about the world its parents had built, and the clothes were the message. Then came Casual Friday. It sounds almost comically small. One day a week when the office relaxed its dress code. A single concession to comfort in an otherwise formal week. Nobody at the time thought it was the beginning of the end. But Casual Friday became Casual Thursday. Then Casual every day. The office that had required a suit in 1975 was accepting jeans by 1995. The standard that had held for decades collapsed within a single professional generation. Then came the tracksuit. Then the athleisure movement. Then the hoodie as the uniform of the world's most powerful men. Then the leggings at the airport. Then the pajama pants at the grocery store. Each step felt small. Each step felt like progress, comfort, liberation, authenticity. Nobody was wrong exactly. Comfort is real. Liberation is real. The right to dress however you choose is real. But something else was also real. Something was being lost. Not just the clothes. The ritual that gave the clothes meaning. The practice of preparing yourself for the world. The belief that the world was worth preparing for. The generation that dressed for the grocery store wasn't performing for anyone. They weren't trying to impress strangers. They were practicing something. A daily discipline that said, quietly and without words, that ordinary life had dignity and that dignity was worth the effort of beauty. When that practice stopped, something changed in how Americans related to their own days, to their own neighborhoods, to the strangers they shared public space with. The clothes were never the point. The point was what the clothes expressed. I think about this sometimes when I'm in an airport, looking at the gates, at the people in sweatpants and hoodies and flip-flops, waiting for flights to cities their grandparents would have dressed in their best clothes to visit. Nobody is wrong. Nobody is doing anything forbidden. But sometimes I wonder what it felt like to live in a world where getting on a plane was still an occasion, where the grocery store was worth a pressed dress, where the act of leaving your house required a moment of intention, a tie straightened, a hat set, a lipstick applied, where getting ready wasn't just preparation, it was practice. The practice of believing that wherever you were going mattered, that whoever you would encounter deserved your full effort, that ordinary life, Tuesday life, errand life, bus ride life, was beautiful enough to dress for. We didn't lose the clothes. We lost the conviction that made them necessary. And I don't know if we can get it back. But I think it's worth remembering that it existed. That there was a time when Americans, ordinary, working, everyday Americans, looked at their day and decided it deserved their best, and then dressed accordingly. Every single day. The Nostalgia Vault, where every decade gets its story told. If this one stayed with you, subscribe and let us know. What's the most dressed up occasion you remember from your childhood? Tell us in the comments. These stories belong to all of us.